All right, everyone, let's start. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on a Saturday morning. And thanks to this young bunch of ladies from Amara Group for agreeing to have the session for us. So before I hand it over to them, a few ground rules. Just ensure that people, if you're not talking, you're on mute. It's an interactive session. So whenever you want to ask questions or if you want to respond to the questions from them, you can unmute yourself, speak, and then go back on mute. Feel free to keep typing any questions or anything that you have on the chat as well. I'll keep monitoring that. And for everything else, just feel free to interact and ask any questions that you have. Okay, I'll hand it over to Anjali now.
Hi everyone, welcome to the session. Thank you for joining us today. So, we're going to get started with a small game. Okay, before we continue the game actually, if you would like to say something, you can always put it in the chat. We'll be answering all questions. So it will be best if you can put your questions down in the chat. If you'd like to share something, you can let us know that you'd like to get on mic. In general, we'll answer the questions at the end of every section that we'll be going through. And we'll also have a general question answer at the end. We will be asking you a lot of questions in the middle, so please do answer them. You can put them in the chat. You can turn on your mic and answer anything is fine. So we're going to be going today. First, we're going to go through the anatomy and a little bit of the science of menstruation. After that, we're going to go through what sanitary napkins are and what tampons are, since those are the products we assume many of you are using. After that, we will then look at the sustainable products that are available, and then we'll have a question answer. So let's get started. We're going to start with a small game, okay? What do you think of when I say menstruation? What is the first word that pops into your mind when I say menstruation? You can put it in the chat, you can turn on your mic. Feel free to tell us. You can share your name as well if you'd like. So I'll start. For me, it's, so my name is Anjali, and for me it is cycle. Natural, tough time, yes, tiresome, pain, discomfort, irritation, blood offensive smell, cramps, emotional burst, monthly, yeah. Definitely. I think these are things that many of us experience, right? It's not unique to one person. So many of us experience this. Frustration, pain, cramps, exhaustion. Yes, definitely. Why is it only for women? Are you asking why is it only for women, menstruation? We can go through that. We'll go through why it's only for women. Okay, very interesting answers. And yes, definitely, this is something that is shared by so many human beings on this planet, right? Okay, so let's move to first the anatomy of menstruation and our body, okay? So this is the uterus. You might have studied this in school. Most 8th grade textbooks do have it, but we'll go through it again once. So here you have your ovaries. This is where the eggs are produced. Okay, this is the fallopian tube. So this is where the egg travels down to go into the uterus. I see a raised hand. Do you want to ask a question? Okay, we'll continue for now. You can put your question in the chat. So this is the uterus, and this is the cervix, and then this is the vaginal canal. Okay, we'll go through each section. So your egg is first produced in the ovaries, right? I'm sure some of you have studied the menstrual cycle. We'll go through it in brief. Every month we have an egg that is produced by the ovary. It's either produced by this ovary or this ovary. The egg then travels down the fallopian tube, and it is along this tube somewhere that if there is a sperm present, it will get fertilized, right? And then that turns into a baby. Once the egg is fertilized, it usually will come down the fallopian tube and it will come and embed itself in the uterus. The uterus has a lining where the egg will then go and stick. That's where the baby would develop. Even if it's not fertilized, the egg will still eventually come down to the uterus. Now it is in the uterus that, so imagine now if you have a little baby growing, right? You'll need some cushioning for the baby. Our menstrual blood is basically this cushioning for the baby. It provides all the nutrients, it provides all the safety, everything for that baby. So the egg goes and embeds itself into that lining. And if there is no fertilization of the egg, that egg and that lining now gets shed. Okay, that shedding is your menstruation, menstrual cycle. Okay, so if the egg is fertilized, it will continue growing and that lining will provide it food and nutrients. If it's not fertilized, it will come down. So all of that lining and that egg will pass through here. This is your cervix. The cervix is the opening of the uterus, and then they'll pass out through your vaginal canal and out of your body. Okay. The cervix is a one-way valve. Things don't go back into your cervix. So when we talk about menstrual cups, you'll see that the menstrual cup fits right over here. Okay. Another thing to just note and remember is that this blood was, it's not dirty. You know, it has the nutrients, it has the capability of producing new life, to support new life. You know, we think that birth is such a beautiful process, right? When you have new babies coming to the world, it's such a beautiful process. So as a society, why do we shame the very casing, the very nutrient that actually helps that baby to grow? This blood, if nothing else, is actually the cleanest in your body. It's very interesting to think about it this way, right? That baby could not have been born without that lining, without that blood. It has all of your love, all of the nutrients from your body that are going into that baby. So we should rethink the way we look at menstrual blood when we start exploring what it is actually for. So this is the anatomy of our uterus. If you have any questions about this, you can put them in the chat. We'll also now look at the external anatomy a little bit. So this is the general, this is a very basic diagram. Here you'll have the clitoris, here. Here you have your urethral opening. This is where, when you go to the washroom, yeah. This is your vaginal opening, and this is the anus, okay. Now it's important to note here, you can see that the vaginal opening and the urethral opening are different. They are two separate holes, okay. So usually we get this question when we talk about cups. Can you go to the bathroom when you're wearing a cup? Yes, absolutely you can, because the cup would go into your vaginal opening, whereas you would pee from your urethral opening, okay. This entire area is very sensitive. It's quite porous and it absorbs things a lot faster than the rest of your skin, right? It's also why when you're wearing sanitary napkins, you might get rashes and things, because it's a very sensitive area. Do you have any questions about the anatomy so far? You can also get on the mic. You can also put your questions in the chat. Either are okay. Okay, I don't think there are too many questions about this right now, so we're going to move on. To briefly answer why is it only for women, it is not actually, and we will come back to that. It is for menstruators, okay? So the reason that this process happens in people who can produce a baby is like we just went through, right? That process is required to produce that baby. Without that, you can't have the baby. So this process happens to most people who have the ability to new life. It's a requirement for that. Okay, so I'm going to now hand over the mic to Mahi, who is going to take us through sanitary napkins and tampons.
Hello. So like us consumers, we're used to asking what's in our product, right? We always want to know what it's made out of, what the ingredients are, especially if we're eating these products or if they're coming in direct contact with us. And I think it's very important to do that with pads as well, because these are products that we're using every month for hours together. So have any of you ever tried finding out what's in a pad and what it's made out of? Just quickly feel free to type in your answer in the chat box. Right, nothing more than what's advertised.
Someone wanted to speak. There was a raised hand. You can get on the mic and share.
Okay, from the movie Padman. Right. So even the people who do try or who have tried finding out what's in a pad, you must have found out that it's pretty hard to actually understand exactly what's in a pad. And this is done intentionally by companies that produce pads, because they don't want it to be easy to find this information, because if it was that easy and if people knew what were in pads, they would probably second guess their decision to use pads. So we tried finding out exactly what was in a pad, and after some digging we did find some very interesting and shocking, in a way, information about what's in a pad. So we can quickly go through. We pulled apart a pad, and this is a pad, and we can quickly go through the different layers of a pad and understand what it's made out of exactly. So this is the outermost layer, and this is made out of plastic and siliconized paper. So this is what you usually wrap your pad in. So after this, you have the pad itself. Just a second. Yeah. So you have the pad itself, and the outermost layer, the layer that this is the back of the pad. This is the part that sticks to your underwear. So this is made out of polyethylene, this plastic bit over here, and this is what makes sure that your pad is leaking. Did I hear someone?
Amma.
Could you please mute your mic? Just everyone could make sure your mics are muted. Right. So after the outermost layer, you have the bulk of the pad. So this part is your softer layer, which feels a little like cotton. So sometimes it can be made out of cotton, but very often this square layer over here and this bulky layer here, they're made out of something called cellulose wood pulp, and it's or rayon or viscose. That's what it's called. And this contains a lot of residue pesticides, and it also releases a chemical called dioxin. We will get to that later, but just keep it in mind. It's very important that we talk about dioxins. So in addition to this being made out of wood pulp, this layer also contains something called super absorbent polymers. So this is what helps soak up the blood, and because of this, your pad bloats up after you've used it. So right. So these are and then on the top is your last layer, and this is like a mesh if you look closely, and this is what gives the feel dry texture to your pad, and this is made out of something called polypropylene. So as you've seen, there's just a lot of plastic in a pad, and it's made out of a lot of synthetic chemicals. So you must have noticed your pads are always white, right? And the wood pulp that the pad is made out of isn't actually white. This is artificially created, and a chemical is used for this. So I think it would be really interesting to hear from all of you what you think this chemical could be. Just take a guess. It's something we're all pretty familiar with. We just wouldn't associate it with pads, but just go ahead and guess what you think creates this. Exactly, someone got it exactly right. Right, it is chlorine bleach, and that's what we use to clean our toilets and our floors, and that's what's on our pads. And we have this tendency to associate cleanliness with and purity with the color white, which is why we have this need to make all sanitary products white. But if you think about it, this bleach is coming in direct contact with our skin, which is so sensitive. And right, you just take a second to let that sink in. Right, and you must be thinking, if pads contain so many chemicals, not just in their materials, but also they have additional fragrances, right? So you usually associate this distinct smell with pads, that period smell, and that smell is actually not your blood. If some of you I think said that it smells bad, and that's what comes to your mind when you think of periods in the beginning in the game. And that smells actually a mixture of the artificial perfumes and our blood. So our period blood actually is completely odorless. So these many chemicals being in our pads, it's still permissible by the government to use pads, because each pad in itself contains a very negligible amount of chemicals. So in each pad itself, it's not too much, which is why the FDA approves of it. But if you're using pads throughout your lifetime, then this obviously accumulates and pads wouldn't be safe at all. So we'll just quickly look at what a tampon is made out of, and Anjali will be looking at that with you, and then we will look at what dioxins are.
So recently you might have noticed that in India, there's a huge fad about tampons that started up. There's a lot of TV ads which are talking about tampons now, and it's being promoted as this, this product which is good for young girls, good for sports people. So, everything that we just looked at, all the chemicals that we looked at in a pad, a tampon has all of those chemicals wrapped up into this tiny little bundle. So this is what a tampon looks like. You can see it clearly. This is the string that you use to put out a tampon. A tampon goes inside your vagina. Okay, it sits inside your vagina. So if you looked at the anatomy at the start, it sits just below your cervix in the vaginal canal, right? And you can see on the screen, it has cotton and rayon, which means it is going to have pesticides. It has polyethylene and propylene to hold the tampon together. Okay, it's the outer layer on this tampon. You have a polyester thread. You have unknown fragrances. So it is still a lot of plastic, and most tampons come with something called an applicator, which helps you insert the tampon, and that applicator is thrown away every single time. Okay, it's made of plastic. Again, the wrapping on this tampon itself is usually plastic as well. I'm also now going to show you what happens when I actually dip this tampon in water. Okay, so I dipped it in. Do you see the way it just bloated up? Right? It just bloated up like this. This is what happens when you put this tampon inside you. So this tampon it's pretty big now, and in fact it bloats up a little bit more once it's inside your body. The issue with this is that it sucks out, it absorbs all the fluid, all the liquid in your vaginal tract. So this means that it not only collects your menstrual blood, but it will also collect the blood. It will also collect the fluid that's actually useful for your vagina. Your vagina cleans out itself, but this tampon absorbs even that, right? It completely dries out the area, and that's not healthy for your body. The other issue is that because all of these chemicals are in the tampon is inside your body. It's not outside anymore. At least the pad is outside. The tampon is in fact inside your body, and that makes it even easier for your body to absorb all the chemicals that are in the tampon, right? You also use a lot more tampons, so you'll probably end up using around 5 to 6 tampons a day, depending on how heavy your flow is. And again, that is a lot of trash. So this is what a tampon is and how it's used. The notion that it is healthier, it is safer, is not at all true. We will also look at, like we said, dioxin, right? So both tampons and pads release dioxin. Dioxin is a byproduct of chlorine bleach, okay? So what happens with dioxin? this chemical dioxin, it's actually listed as one of the dirty dozen by WHO, World Health Organization. An organic pollutant, which is, the chemical is considered an organic pollutant. It is basically a chemical that is so harmful, it should not come in contact with any organics, that is any animal, any human, nothing organic. It is extremely toxic, right? We put this right near our skin, and because it's released in small amounts, it's permissible. So this chemical, it leaches directly into our skin. That area of our body is extremely permeable, it's extremely sensitive, and there's very little filtration which happens there. So all of these chemicals come into our bloodstream, and they go and they collect in our body's fat cells. Okay. Once something is stored in your fat cells, it's very hard for the body to break it down. Foreign chemical. Your body does not have a mechanism to deal with it. So it stays there for up to 20 years. That dioxin stays in your body for up to 20 years. And imagine you're continuously using these pads and tampons, right? It's not a one-time thing. You're using nearly 9,000 to 10,000 pads or tampons in your lifetime. The amount of chemical which is inputted in your body every time, and each time it stays for up to 20 years, it just accumulates, right? The chemical just accumulates in your body, and it is extremely unhealthy. So some of the general causes of dioxin you can see on the screen are cervical ovarian cancer, abnormal cell growth, infertility. These are some of the very common ones. High blood pressure is one more, pelvic inflammatory disease also. It's not healthy. One other thing that dioxin, as well as the other chemicals in the pads and tampons cause, is toxic shock syndrome. You might have heard of this. It is linked directly to tampons. This is a disease that is caused by a bacteria which grows when the pH level of your vagina has been changed. This is the chemical composition of your vagina has been slightly altered. Okay. When this happens, this bacteria, it releases harmful toxins, and it results in a disease called toxic shock syndrome. It is a rare disease, but it can be fatal. So these are the health effects of what we are putting near our body. It is shocking. Honestly, it is shocking. You know, you don't expect that a medical product like sanitary napkins or tampons, which are supposed to be safe, which are supposed to be clean, supposed to be healthy for our body, they help to manage, you know, one of these amazing cycles that our body goes through. How can they contain so many chemicals? How is it okay that we continue buying them? And how is it okay that we are not told what we are putting in our bodies? This information should not be hidden from us. So we've gone through the health effects of on our body of these products. If you have any question, we can answer it. If you have any questions about this particular section, let me just check this. And people had asked, what is the blue dots on a pad? The blue dots are basically the gels. That's a super absorbent polymer. It can be colored sometimes. That is the company's choice. They dye it blue sometimes because most of their advertisements are shown with blue gel. So that's why it's blue on the pad as well. Yes, tampons and pads both can cause toxic shock syndrome because even the chemicals on the pad, even though the pad is external, so it's right, you wear it outside, even then the chemicals do leach in. How safe are the colored pads coming? Are you talking about the colored pads which are biodegradable or the non-biodegradable colored pads? Abnormal cell growth in which part of the body is more prone? It's usually the area like around your uterus, around your vaginal area. So that definitely, because you're wearing these pads, that area is a lot more affected. Biodegradable colored pads we will talk about in a while. So yes, abnormal cell growth is usually in that area of the body. Abnormal cell growth is cancer, abnormal cell growth. You've probably heard of cervical cancer, ovarian cancer. They've become extremely common nowadays. Even things like we get so many rashes, itchiness. So many girls are getting PCOD today. They have irregular cycles. This was not the case earlier. This is very recent, and it is highly possible that it is connected to these products. Any research into fibroids connected? Yeah, I'm sure they are. Unfortunately, this entire area really doesn't have too much research being done around it. One, because these companies have managed to hide all of this very well, and more than hide it, they don't want this information out. So there's very little research being done into menstruation and these products in general, but I'm sure they are connected. Okay, we will, yes, that's a very good point about cloth pads, and we'll come to it. I'm going to now hand over to Mahi, and she's going to talk about how this also affects the environment, not just our body. So Mahi, why don't you
Right.
take it?
Yes, exactly. So it's not just our bodies that are affected by this, but most definitely the environment as well. So I just want to start with a couple of quick questions. How and where do you usually dispose of your pads once you're done using them monthly? Again, feel free to just type it in. Or you can switch your mic on if that's easier for you. Right, non-recyclable dustbin. Just public garbage bin, garbage. Right. And right. So most of us do just put it into our dustbins, and once they're collected from our general common dustbins, where do you think they go? These pads and tampons, where do you think they end up being dumped or put? Right, someone got it absolutely correct. They do end up in landfills. So sometimes they're burned openly in grounds, but most of the time they do end up in landfills. And the fact is that 12 billion pads are disposed of every year in India. And all these pads, a lot of them end up in landfills, in our soil. And it's really interesting to know that these many pads are produced by actually just a small percentage of menstruators, because most people who menstruate in India don't even use pads. So just imagine if everyone used pads, right? So in addition to just like the sheer volume of waste that's created by using pads, we also really need to think about how much time these pads take to degrade once they've been dumped and buried in the soil. So again, I think it'll be super interesting to hear what you think, and how the time a pad takes to degrade naturally. And yeah, just feel free to type it in. Just a quick number, how many years you think it takes. Okay, 60 years. Okay, so someone did get it right actually. They can take up to 800 years to degrade. And if you think about it, that would mean that the first pad ever created, if it was disposed in the soil, then it is still sitting around there somewhere waiting to degrade. So, right, so as we've seen, pads contain a lot of plastic, right? In fact, just give you some context, each pad contains around 4 plastic bags worth of plastic in it. And a menstruator, on an average, uses 10,000 pads in their lifetime. And if you calculate that, that would mean that 40,000 plastic bags worth of plastic is being used by a menstruator when they use pads. So all of this, with the chemicals that are in the pads, are put into our soil. And these chemicals, as we've seen, dioxins and other synthetic agents, when they interact with our blood, which is organic, they create hazardous substances which are just all the more dangerous for our environment. And this leaches into not just our soil ecosystems, but also into our rivers and into our groundwater tables. And these pads and tampons, the whole process of being collected from our dustbins to being burned or put into landfills, this whole process is managed by people, right? You have rag pickers and other workers coming in direct contact with these used and very often insufficiently and incompletely wrapped pads and tampons, and they have to work with this on a daily basis. And other than just being disgusting, because if you think about it, none of us would be willing to work with someone else's used menstrual waste. This also has very real consequences, health consequences for these workers. It's known to cause skin diseases, eye infections, and gastrointestinal infections for these people. And that's just very unfair for them to have to work with this, and very often without sufficient protection. And someone did mention that they wrap it in newspaper. So the ideal way of actually disposing of a pad and managing it is to first wrap it in a newspaper and mark it with a red dot or X. And then it has to be collected by a separate collection agency, ideally, and they need to separately incinerate it at a very high temperature. But there aren't enough incinerators in India, which is why medical waste is given priority over menstrual waste. So, right, so even if you do incinerate it, it still would not be free of pollution because you're still releasing all of these chemicals into the air. But that would be the best way to dispose of these synthetic menstrual products. And as most of us would know, we're far from that, and we probably will not be doing that anytime soon in India. So honestly, this whole conversation about what exactly its impacts are were pretty shocking to me when I first learned about it, and it honestly made me question my choices, and especially when there are such convenient and sustainable alternatives there that are just so easy to work with. And that is what our next segments will look at. And I think Anjali will be taking over.
So Ahana will be talking about biodegradable cloth pads, but before we just do that, there's a few questions about sanitary napkins and things like that. So what causes irritation are all the chemicals which we spoke about, the fragrances especially. These products are introduced into the market by the Food and Drug Administration of India. The reason they are passed is because, again, like we said, there's very little amount of these chemicals in each product. Okay. The sources of the information on our slides, we will share all of these with you after the session. But this particular one, I just put it in the chat, is from WSSCC, Swatch, and many news sites. But we do want to remind everyone that stats regarding sanitary napkins and tampons especially are not reliable because there's very little research that's being done, and most of the garbage is not separately collected, right? Most of the sanitary waste is taken into our normal landfill. So in fact, there's probably a lot more which is not being recorded at all. This is the waste that is recorded. And about WCs that are installed for corporates, I assume you're meaning in incinerators that are there in corporate settings. And like Mahi said, even if you burn sanitary napkins, you're still releasing pollution from those because the dioxin is going to the air. Okay. Ahana, do you want to take over?
Okay, so I will be talking to you about biodegradable pads and cloth pads. If you have any other questions regarding sanitary napkins, you can put it in the chat box and we'll keep answering them. So let's talk about biodegradable pads versus natural or organic pads first, since a lot of people had questions regarding the same. So when pad companies just use the word natural or organic, it's a little flimsy. That means the natural materials like cotton will not have pesticides, but it could still have plastic because they are not putting biodegradable there for a reason. It's just that it probably has lesser chemicals, but it can still have materials like plastic. Whereas when you talk about biodegradable pads, they can also be organic. They don't have to be organic, but they are completely made of materials that are biodegradable. So you can look at the various packages and be very careful of the language they use when you look at it. So for example, Kameshi uses both natural and biodegradable. Here, I hope you can see it. So this is because they use all natural materials and it is also biodegradable. So it can be either or both. So you need to look at the language they're using. Then, so what are these biodegradable pads made of? So they're usually made of bamboo fiber or banana fiber or any other natural fiber like cotton. And they look the same as your sanitary pads, only the color can be a little different. They won't be the same kind of stark white. They can sometimes be off-white and brown because there are no colors in them. And sometimes there is also some natural bacteria used that can make them white, but again, it won't be a stark white like your sanitary napkins. So if you look at the Kameshi pad, it looks pretty much just like your other pads. It has a adhesive back layer that you can stick to the bottom of your underwear, and it looks pretty much the same, and it does look white. It's only not stark white. So the way you use it is the same as your normal sanitary napkins, and a, it comes wrapped in a biodegradable plastic, and it comes wrapped in also this little pouch. So if you're not sure if you can trust a brand, why don't you, and if it does say it's biodegradable, so you can do this little experiment. You can make a pit in your garden or in a pot, and we've tried this, so we know for sure that within 60 to 90 days, you put this pad, the used pad, in this cover, and it will completely degrade within this period of time. So these pads also come in different sizes, like your normal sanitary napkin. So there's an overnight pad, there's a small pad, there are larger ones. So this particular one is for regular flow, as you can see. And you also get these in customizable packs, so you can arrange them according to the different kinds of pads you need. So it can be some regular flow, some heavy flow, some less flow. And some people, like, we often have this idea that biodegradable pads are very expensive, but that is really not the case. It's just the ones that are advertised and that we get to see that may seem more expensive. Biodegradable pads cost anywhere between 3 rupees to 15 rupees. So 15 rupees is the higher end per pad, and the cost of your average sanitary napkin is 10 rupees. So some of them are even cheaper than the normal sanitary napkin. So while disposing, as I mentioned, so you need to check. Not all biodegradable pad brands do this, but some of them and most of them who do this will mention it, that you dispose the pad with the wrapper. So it does say use this bag to dispose the wrapper, because even this is biodegradable. Some are not. So you need to check this. So you wrap your pad in this, and you can either dispose it off with your other biodegradable waste, or make a compost pit in your garden, and you can also do that. So if you're worried about any chemicals leaching into the soil, that will not happen, because this is natural. And even the blood, your blood is actually very rich in iron and other minerals, so it's actually really good for your plants. So if you want to experiment, you can try this out. I'll just look at any questions you have, and then we'll move on to cloth pads. Okay, so I think there was also a question that if the biodegradable pads are colored, do they have chemicals in it? It is very likely that they will have chemicals in it if they are vividly colored, because natural colors, they are actually really still very expensive, and they don't catch on so easily. So it's likely that the company has used some chemicals, and it's better to stay away from such pads because it's an unnecessary chemical that you're um, revealing to your body. So you can try and experiment with different brands. The absorbency is pretty much the same, but it's just a little, maybe it's a little lesser because they don't have the super absorbent polymers and other chemicals. Yeah. You should also change these pads like every 6 hours. You can wear them for a little longer than your normal pads, but you shouldn't wear them for too long because once your blood is released in the air, then it starts to form bacteria. So any sort of sanitary napkin that you wear, you should change it. That's why you should change it often. If it has chemicals, then you change it even more often. So on the presentation, you can see some of the different cloth pad and biodegradable pad brands. We also will send you this list if you want it, and the pricing with it, so you can check it out and buy for yourself. So let's talk about cloth pads. Someone said that, yeah, there have been a lot of cloth pads in the market right now. This is because people are realizing how many chemical sanitary napkins have. And there are these movies, like at the start of a movie, you would have seen that Akshay Kumar ad that says, do not use cloth pads, they are bad for you. This is a misnomer. Our mothers, their, our grandmothers, they've all used cloth pads for centuries, and um, they practice this with reason. It's just that right now periods have become such a taboo that maintaining the cloth pad is what is causing disease. So cloth pads are actually good for you. We will talk about the hygiene and how to maintain it so you understand this better. So the taboo around menstruation leads to drying these cloth pads in very dingy areas, under the cupboard, in some bathroom, under something. So because of this, the cloth pad does not dry properly, and it leads to mold forming on the cloth pad and other bacteria growing. And this is similar to, like, if you think about monsoons and when you're drying your clothes in the monsoons, they have a very typical smell if they don't dry properly, that is of mold. So the same thing happens, and that can cause things like yeast infection. So what we actually need to do is, instead of going to villages and telling them about sanitary napkins, that you should use these, and introducing garbage that they're like they won't be able to handle, they'll have no place to throw it. A lot of villages have now new garbage which they never had before, because sanitary napkins are introduced, and this is done without it's not a real solution, it's just a little escape, and it's a capitalistic solution. So instead, we need to tell them about how to maintain these cloth pads, open up the taboo, give them different options. So um, so ethical and sustainable solution is telling them how to maintain this cloth pad, and also that, so I'll also explain it to you how to maintain the cloth pad. It basically needs to be dried in the sun, and that is key. If you're not exposed to sun, then you can also dry it in your washing machine dryer. There are also cloth pads that completely open up. Anjali, can you show that cloth pad actually that completely opens up like a napkin?
Can you guys see this? So what you fold it, this, it folds in, and then you can use it. So basically this part goes up. You have the buttons now.
So cloth pads are like spoken of as an old generation product, but they're actually really good. They're really comfortable to use, and you can use them for up to from 2 to 5 years if you maintain them properly. Let's talk about the anatomy of a cloth pad. So it can be made from any natural fiber. It has flaps like your normal sanitary napkin, and it has a button to enclose these flaps. It is filled with cotton or flannel, and sometimes it comes with a POL lining. This is a plastic lining that prevents any leakage. Sometimes it also comes with an eco-POL lining, which is much better to opt for since you're going for an eco-friendly product, which is a lining that prevents any leakage and it's eco-friendly. And this lining, for in any case, only lasts for up to 250 washes. So that's another thing. Some people think also that it feels really wet. It's a lot of maintenance. This is not the case. So when you wear an underwear, it is soft because it is cotton. This is the same thing. It is cotton. It feels soft around your vulva, your vagina, and it's almost like a cushion because it's thick. It's very comfortable. It does not feel wet, and even drying it or cleaning it is just a short process that you need to get used to and make it a part of your routine. It can be very easy once you get used to it. So basically you can soak this pad either for half an hour or overnight. If you don't have much time, you can just soak it for 15 minutes, and you take a little bucket with soap water and you just dip it like, and do that for a few minutes. All the stains, all the blood will come off. You can also wash it in a washing machine. Just do not use any strong detergent on it. There's no need to use a brush also on this. This also comes in different sizes, like your normal sanitary napkin. So there'll be an all-night pad, there'll be a small size regular flow one. This does move around a bit because it has no adhesive, but this is not a problem. You can just wear a little bit of tighter clothing, maybe tights, and that makes it much easier to use this. It is very comfortable. We have tried it, and it is a lot more comfortable than a sanitary napkin. So what to do if you want to, if you're at work, or if you're running errands outside, can you still use it and wear it? Is it that you have to like every time you use it that you have to wash it immediately? That's completely not the case. So if you're outside and maybe at work you have to change it, so what you do is that you take the sanitary napkin and you fold it into a portly like this. I'll ask Anjali to show it also, I think. And you can seal it with the button, and then you put it in a little cloth bag, and then you use your next cloth pad, and then you can wash it all together at night. So that's it. Anjali, could you also show the different types of cloth pads?
Yes, I will. So I already showed you the folding one. Apart from this, these are EcoFem pads which I'm going to show you now. 1 second. Okay. So this is the big pad. This is their night pad, EcoFem. Yeah. Then you have their normal day pad. You can see it's visibly smaller, right? So you have this one. Then they have a smaller pad. This is good for like your 4th or your 5th day. And then they also sell panty liners. So these are for days that you're not on your period, but you have discharge. You can use these. They're quite comfortable, and I personally use them. They're quite nice. So yeah, these ones.
Yeah, so the main thing, like I mentioned earlier, to maintain the health of a cloth pad is to dry it in the sun and ensure that it dries properly. So that's just a key thing to keep in mind. Should we move on to menstrual cups right now? Does anyone have
There
any
was a
questions?
quick question about whether you can make cloth pads at home. You can make cloth pads at home, and we can try and find a video to send to you about that. The only thing is you need to make sure that the cloth you're using to make that cloth pad is firstly clean. The other issue with making your own cloth pads is that it does require a little bit of design, like product design. You have to figure out what are the best materials to use to prevent the leakage. How do you add the PUL lining? Even if you don't add a PUL lining, how do you stitch it together to prevent the leakage? Things like that. Because if you put plain cloth, it will leak through. So we can definitely help you with that after the session. If you're interested, you can email us back and let us know.
We can share some videos and resources regarding the same also with you. Brands for cloth pads, we'll send a list of the same. We had shared it in the previous slide. We can send it across to you.
There are some other questions as well. Okay, one is when we're going to office, how safe is it? It's safe all the time. That it's not unsafe at all. The only thing is when you're in office, just when it's full, you just wrap it up like Ahana showed you and put it in a cloth bag and come home and wash it. That's all. It's still completely safe. And you can wear, how often you have to change this really depends on your own flow, but you can definitely wear them for up to 6 hours because they don't have any chemicals. Your normal sanitary napkins, you're only allowed to, not allowed to, but you're only supposed to wear them for about 3 to 4 hours because of the chemicals in them. And we'll send you the links from where you can buy these cloth pads. If you, we can forward it to Gayatri and she'll forward it to all of you.
And like I mentioned earlier, there's also, you get heavy flow cloth pads, so there's no need to worry about that, about it leaking or anything like that. And you can look at the blood like you can in your normal sanitary napkin, so you will know when to change the cloth pad. Yeah.
Move to cups now. There aren't too many questions.
Okay. So the next product we'll be talking about is the menstrual cup. So this is the menstrual cup. So the key way in which it is different from other sanitary products is that it collects your blood. It doesn't absorb it. Tampons absorb your blood. Sanitary napkins absorb your blood. It collects your blood. It can be made from various materials like latex, silicone, rubber, but the only one you are supposed to use and the only one that is safe for your body is the one made out of medical grade silicone. This is also used in medical procedures inside your body, and it is completely non-reactive. The atoms are tightly bound together, ensuring that your cup is always hygienic, it is safe to use, that no chemical is released from it. It is also inserted into the vagina like a tampon, but the way it is different is that it does not absorb it, so it does not get rid of the good bacteria, so it helps you maintain your vaginal health without any side effects. It is also it's like a cup or a bell. The whole shape is like a bell with a stem. The stem is just to locate the cup. We will talk about that more in detail later. And the cup fills the fluid. Yeah, and Reva will talk to you more about the cup and how to use it.
Yeah.
Is Reva here? Yeah.
Yeah. So as you can see, this is the cup and it is made of medical grade silicone. And you can use this one cup for up to 10 years. You can definitely use it for 8 to 10 years. So that is a huge advantage of using a cup, that you are not producing any garbage. Like you buy one cup and you can use it for up to 8 years, the same cup. So you just have to wash it and you can reuse it. So it's reusable. And just imagine if one person starts using a cup, how much like you will end up not producing so much garbage. Now, before I tell you how to use the cup, I will tell you how to dispose a cup after you're done using it for 8 years. So you just have to make sure that you, I think Hannah spoke about the incinerators before and how pads are supposed to be incinerated, but they don't get incinerated. So you just have to make sure that you incinerate this cup. Like for that, you will have to contact maybe a hospital or something. And it's not really a very tough job, right? You just have to make sure that this one cup gets incinerated properly, and that's it. Okay, so now I'll tell you how to use the cup. So this cup goes inside your body, obviously. It goes inside your vagina and it stays there. It collects all the blood and then you're supposed to take it out, empty the cup, and then put it inside again, and you're ready to use it again. So now for the insertion, to just make it easier, there are a couple of folds that I'm going to tell you now. which makes it easier, because right now you might be thinking that, oh my god, it is so big, how will it go inside me and will it hurt? So these folds will just make it easier for you to insert it. And obviously the basic principle on which this cup stays inside is that it creates a suction inside your body. So you just need to make sure that while you're making the fold, you just have to like press the cup as hard as you can so that there'll be no air inside it. Okay, so I'm going to show you two folds right now. The first one is called a C fold. So for that, you just need to press down the top part and then just leave your hand. So if you can see, it looks like a C or a U. And as you can see, the opening has become much smaller, which makes it easier for you to insert it. And as I said before, just make sure that there is no air inside. So press it properly so that as soon as you leave it, it goes inside and opens on its own. Okay, now the second fold is called the shell fold, for which you need to pull the top part towards you and then okay, so it looks like a shell. Can you see? And as you can see now, the opening has become much smaller, like even more than the previous fold. And then it is gradually getting bigger. So this makes it very easy for you to insert the cup. And okay, so after you and I can't tell you right now which fold will work for you. You'll have to try a couple of folds and then you'll get to know which one works for you better. And just like folds, there are a couple of different positions as well that you can try, because every person has a different body. So what works for me might not work for you. So you can try standing up, that works for some people, or you can squat, you can keep one leg on the ground, one leg on top of something, that might help you. So these are a couple of different positions that you can try. And after you get a hang of it, though it won't, like it probably sounds a bit confusing right now that there are so many different folds, so many different positions. But once you get to know what works for your body, then trust me, it won't take so much time. And every time you change the cup, you can do it in less than a minute. Okay, so this is about...
Reva, just 1 minute. There's a request to show the second fold again, the shell fold.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So this is how you do it. You press down on the top part and then you pull it towards you and then you leave your hand. So yeah, this is how it looks. And as you can see, the opening, you can see it's really tiny. So you can easily put it inside you, and then it gradually gets bigger. And then as soon as you leave your hand a little bit, it will pop open and it will create the suction inside your body, and then it slides in. Could you, yeah, just let me know if it was clear. If you want me to show the folds again, I will do it. Okay, great. So now, yeah, also when you're on your period, your vagina is much more lubricated than it usually is. So also one more thing, just never try to to insert a cup when you're not on your period, because that might hurt the first time because your vagina is not as lubricated. So when you want to try using a cup, just make sure that you do it on the first day of your period. So your vagina is very well lubricated and it won't hurt at all. So now, where does this cup stay inside your body? So it's not like this cup is pushing the walls of your vagina to make space for itself. There is already a small space that exists inside your vagina. And that is why the cup is made this way. That is why this shape is there, so that it stays perfectly inside your body. And it goes around your cervix. Now, what is your cervix? It is the opening of your uterus. So imagine if this is your uterus, this part is your cervix. So if you try to put your finger inside your vagina, you will feel the cervix and it feels like the tip of your nose. So that is your cervix basically. And the cup is supposed to go right around the cervix this way. And yeah, so when you insert the cup, you don't have to go all the way in and then leave your hand, because then, as you can see, it might get stuck around the cervix, and that is not how you want the cup to be inside your body. It has to go around the cervix. So imagine, like, if you fold the cup, This is your cervix. You put it inside your vagina and then you leave it on its own. And as I said, your vagina is very well lubricated. So it's just going to slide up. The cup will slide up and automatically go around the cervix. And that is how it stays. Yeah, Hannah?
Yes, so I was just adding to that. So you put it more than halfway in, but not completely in, and you let it open. And then you either push it in, or sometimes it also goes up for some people. And that's a much easier way to ensure that your cup opens up.
Yeah. So why do you have to go halfway in? As I said before, if you go completely inside, as much as you go, then the cup won't open properly. It will just get stuck around the cervix. It will also hurt. And obviously, if the cervix, if it's not around the cervix, then the blood is just going to come out. So as Ahana said, you can go halfway in, then the cup will open. Then it might go inside on its own, or you'll just have to push it like this a little bit, and then it will go and fit around the cervix. And then the blood gets collected inside the cup, and then you remove it. Now, before I talk about the removal, I will tell you how to make sure that the cup is that you have inserted the cup properly. So as I said, it is supposed to fit around the cervix, and you have a lot of nerve endings towards the cervix. So if the cup is touching your cervix, you will feel the cup. Or if the cup is not opened properly and it is constantly hitting the cervix, then you will feel the cup. So when you insert the cup properly, you're not supposed to feel it at all. So in fact, sometimes on my 5th or 6th day of the cycle, I even forget that the cup is inside, because you're not supposed to feel the cup. So that is one thing you have to make sure, that if you're feeling the cup in any way, if it's hurting, if you think it's coming out, if you think you haven't inserted it properly, you will feel the cup, and then you know that you haven't inserted it properly. The second thing is that when you put it inside, you can hear like a small pop sound like this. So it won't be that loud, but you will feel the suction getting created inside your body. So that is one more way to make sure that the cup has gone inside properly. And can you see the stem? I will tell you what the stem. Tell you about the stem a bit later, but just make sure that the entire cup is supposed to go inside your body. You can't just like this. It won't be okay if only this much part goes inside and the stem is sticking out. That is not how the cup is supposed to fit inside your body. This entire part goes inside your body. Okay, now I will talk about the removal. Also, yeah, you can do all kinds of activities while you're wearing this cup, because the suction gets created and then there's no way the cup is going to come out while you're doing something. So you can even swim with the cup, which you can't do while you're wearing pads. You can swim, you can whatever, play any kind of sports and do all kinds of normal activity, all kinds of activities that you do while you're not on your period. You can do everything if you're wearing this cup. You can go into a handstand, do yoga, and we have actually tried doing all kinds of activities while you're on your period wearing the cup. So yes, that is one more advantage of using a cup, that it goes inside your body and then you don't have to worry about it. So you can do all normal activities while you're wearing this cup. Now I'll talk about the removal. As I said, you have a suction has gotten created inside your body, right? So all you need to do is break the suction and the cup will come out. And so imagine now the cup is inside you and the suction is there. And obviously if the cup gets full, it gets slightly heavy. So it's already kind of sliding out, but it won't come out on its own. So don't worry about that. So all you need to do is put a finger or probably 2 fingers inside and then just pinch the cup a little bit from here, so that the suction will break. And then as soon as the suction gets broken, you can pull the cup out and it will come out easily. Just make sure that you don't you don't need to put your hand all the way in. Maybe some people might have to do that the first few times. It's a learning curve and you will get a hang of it, but you will have to try different things in the beginning. So yeah, at least for me, I just have to put my hand a little bit inside like this much and then just press the cup and the suction gets broken, and then you slowly remove the cup. After that, you just have to empty the blood somewhere, and then you wash the cup and then you are ready to insert it again. Now, probably the first few times you try doing this, it might get a little messy, and that's completely all right. That is one more thing you will learn while you start using the cup, that you will get more comfortable with looking at your own blood. And obviously when the blood is on the pad, you try not to look at it, because even you feel disgusted looking at it, because there's so many chemicals there, and it all gets mixed up on the pad and it looks gross. But that won't happen with the cup, because in the cup only and only your blood is going to get collected, sorry. There are no chemicals in the cup, nothing is going to react with the blood, so there's going to be pure blood inside your cup. You can just empty the cup and wash it with water, and as Ahana said, nothing is going to react with this cup, so it won't be very tough for you to, like, you won't have to put your fingers and like thoroughly wash the cup. You can just use a water spray and wash the cup with water, normal water, and then you're ready to insert the cup again. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind is that there is no need to use soap, any kind of soap on this cup, because the soap won't do anything to the cup, but the cup is going inside your body, right? So the soap might change the pH of your vagina. So there is no need to use soap. This is not reactive, so water will be sufficient. You can use soap while washing your hands later. So yes, this is all you have to do when you're you just need to wash your cup before you insert it. But before and after every cycle, you need to sterilize the cup. So I will talk about that a little bit now. As I said, every time you change the cup, you don't need to sterilize it. Water is enough. You just need to wash it with water and use it again. But before and after every cycle, you need to sterilize the cup, just so that the bacteria or anything that is left on the cup dies. You know how you sterilize baby milk bottles, right? So you just need to boil water in a vessel, and afterwards just put the cup inside it for 10 to 15 minutes. That's it. That's all you need to do, and that will be enough. Yeah, so if you are not comfortable with doing this in your kitchen, you can also boil the water in the kitchen, then get it inside your room or your bathroom, and then keep the cup inside it for 10 to 15 minutes, and that should be enough. Yeah, so that is about the sterilizing. Just reading the questions. Yeah, Hannah, you want to say something?
Yeah. So I just wanted to add a few things. So a menstrual cup holds at least 3 times more fluid than any sanitary napkin and 6 times more fluid than any tampon. So you would also see that there are markings, like, I don't know if you can see it through the screen. It says 7.5, 15. There are cups that go to 20 ml. And so we think that we bleed a lot, Ganga, Yamuna, Bhariya, but that's really not the case. On an average, a person bleeds 80 ml in their whole cycle. So someone was asking, like, will the cup fill, or how do I know when to change it? If you have a heavy flow, maybe whenever you have a heavy flow and you just started to use the cup, you can change it every 6 hours. You will learn the little cues that when the cup is full, it feels a little heavier. You feel a little bit air release or air bubbles release, and that's how you know when to change the cup. You may not realize it the first time you're wearing it. So the first time you're wearing it, you can use it with the sanitary napkin. But once you get used to it, you'll realize you'll be able to respond to those cues of the cup getting heavier or a little air releasing. Even then, the cup is unlikely to leak. You'll still have like a time period of maybe 15 minutes before it starts leaking. It is very rare that the cup leaks. And also that we think that our blood has this smell, but it's not the blood that has the smell, it's the chemicals and the reaction to the air that causes the smell. So when you see the blood in your cup, it has no smell. If it does have a smell, it's a very organic, subtle smell. So it's much more, it's not that disgusting to actually remove it and dispose the blood. You'll get very comfortable with it. Sometimes some people find it really beautiful too. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, also you might be thinking how will you get to know when after your cup is full, right? Because with the pad you can see, you can just go into a bathroom and check if your pad is full and if you need to change it or not. But how will you get to know with a cup? So now this will also it will take some time for you to understand your cycle, and you will slowly understand how much you bleed every day. So maybe on the first day you will have to change the cup more frequently, and maybe on the second, third day you won't have to change it that often. And maybe and usually on the fourth and fifth day, if you change it once in the morning and once at night, that should be sufficient. You just need to make sure that you change it after 12 hours, because then after that the bacteria inside your blood will start growing, and that there's no need to keep it inside for so long. So after 12 hours you should change the cup, and you will have to change it before that if your flow is very heavy. So it's something you will get to know as you start using the cup. And as I said before, it's a learning curve. You will understand how your body works, how much you bleed on every day, and that is how you will get to know how often you need to change the cup.
Okay. Should we talk about the brands and sizes?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about the stem.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So this stem that you can see over here, that stem is not for you to hold on to it and pull the cup out. As I've already told you, while you're removing the cup, you just have to press it and break the suction. You can't hold on to the stem and pull it out, because A, it will hurt, and B, that is not why this stem is there. So the stem is there just to make it easier for you to locate the cup. So if some women are really tall, their cervix also is very high up in your vagina. So the cup might go inside, and then you might not be able to locate the cup. So it just makes it easier for you to locate it, because it's coming like it increases the height of the cup basically. So it'll just make it easier for you to locate the cup. That's it. That's all the cervix is there for. It's not for you to hold on to it and pull the cup out. And as I said before, if the cervix is sticking out of your vagina, so if this is the opening of your vagina and the stem is constantly sticking out, then you can cut the stem. And while cutting the stem, you just need to make sure that you're not cutting it and making a hole in the cup, because then the cup will be wasted. So you can cut it a little bit and file it properly so that won't hurt you. And don't cut it the first time you start using the cup, because when you insert it, like after you insert it, the cup might go slightly up, and then you won't need to cut the stem. So give it some time. You can use it for one cycle and then decide whether you need to cut the stem or not. One more thing you can do after you start using a cup is that you can also use the pad, like maybe a cloth pad, or if you're not comfortable using a cloth pad right now, if you're using sanitary napkins right now, you can still wear a sanitary napkin and start using the cup at the same time. So that even if the cup leaks, even if there's something wrong, if you have not inserted the cup properly, then the blood will get collected on the sanitary napkin, and then you will know that you're doing something wrong. So this way you don't have to be very stressed the whole time, and whether it will leak, whether it won't, if I have put it properly or not. So you can just put the pad as well, and that will make it easier for you. Okay, yeah. So now Anjali will talk about the brands and the prices.
So just quickly running over the sizes and brands. How do you choose a size online? It seems quite complicated to choose a menstrual cup size. It's really not that hard. Size just depends on your age and whether or not you've given birth. It is not dependent on your flow. Okay. So a smaller, a medium cup will be if you're below 25 years of age or if you've not given birth. And a large cup will be if you're above 25 years of age or you have given birth. Okay. This is inclusive of C-section as well. Even if you've given a C-section birth, you still go for a large cup. Yeah, this will depend on the brand, the sizes. Some have a medium and a large, some have small and large, and some have all three. We can help you choose which one would be suitable for you if you do decide to buy a cup. It is not dependent on your flow, because every cup, even if it's smaller or larger, so even if I show you these two, they'll hold a very similar amount of blood in them. Okay, the amount of blood they hold is not that different. The length will be the same. The only thing that will change is slightly the diameter will become a little bit, maybe by a few millimeters larger. And this is just to accommodate for the size of your vagina, because if you're older or you've given birth, it stretches just a tiny bit. That is all. Apart from that, when you look at brands, these are, for example, 3 brands that I have right now. There are many brands out there. These are just 3. However, like Ahana said at the start, it matters which material you're using, okay? You have to go for a medical grade silicone brand. Now, the brand that we suggest is called Rustic Art. This is their cup. You can see it. It is a clear cup, which is very important. Any color added to a cup will just be one additional chemical, and you don't want that. A cup should be clear because medical grade silicone is clear. It is not colored. So an opaque cup, a translucent cup, something like this, it's better to avoid it if you can. Other thing is, a cup should have 4 suction holes. Okay, this cup, you'll be able to see it. You can see a little suction hole here, okay? This is to increase the suction of the cup and make sure that it stays inside well and doesn't leak. Rustic Art has 4 suction holes, so that is good. It is also an Indian company, so it is usually we recommend that if you're an Indian menstruator, you buy an Indian company because foreign brands tend to be longer. Women abroad have slightly higher cervixes, so the cup is, an Indian cup is best for Indian menstruators because they're shorter. Okay, so you can see the Rustic Art cup is a lot shorter than, for example, this cup, right? It's shorter, so it's easier for you to use. It's produced, this particular cup is produced in Pune, Satara, Pune. We personally have been using them for about 3 years, most of us, and we've never faced any issues, no issues of smelling or color change. So that is why we recommend them. When we started this project, we tried a bunch of different Indian brands, and we honestly like this one the most. That is why you can also go for foreign brands if you would like. So there are brands like Moon Cup or Diva Cup, which you could explore. And we'll again send you all of this information in the mail that we'll share with you. But we would say that if you want to buy an Indian brand, Rustic Art is a great one. It's priced at 950 rupees, and you get the cup, cloth pack to store it. Comes in a jute pouch, which you can put inside it, and it comes with the cup wash as well. Now, it's best if you don't use a cup wash, but you can if you don't have any other option. You store it in the cloth bag that the cup will come with. Okay, so all cups come with a breathable cloth bag. You store it in there. The name of the menstrual cup brand is Rustic Art. Okay, again, we will share the website with you, so don't worry about that. It's rusticart.in, otherwise, if you would like to look right now. That is how you store it. That is pretty much with the brand. It is, if you go online to start exploring, it's going to be very confusing. We tell you that from now. You're going to get very confused between which brand to buy because every day you have new cup brands coming out. If you would like to buy one, you can, it's better if you reach out to us and we can help you choose a cup according to your requirements. We won't share the cup brands here because there's too many to share, but we will send it to you in an email later. You can also, you have our website over here, the projectamara.wordpress.com. We have a list of cups that are good on our website, so you can take a look there as well. So if you have any questions now, we can take them. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming to the session. It was very, very nice to take the session with you. A wonderful, wonderful group, so interactive. We had a lot of fun. And we hope you learned something. We hope you were able to clarify some of your doubts. And we would like to thank Gayatri ji so much for organizing this session. It was absolutely wonderful. We will be hanging back for 5-10 minutes to answer any questions. If you would like to conduct, if you would like us to conduct any session for you, this could be with your society, with your friends, with your family, if you work at a school, maybe, or if you have any daughters or sons, and if you want to conduct one in their school, you can always reach out to us. Our number is on the screen and email as well. You can let us know. If you let us know a week in advance, we can schedule a session for you.
Anjali, one question was about how early can a menstruator start using this?
Right. A menstruator, so there is no age limit. You will see a lot of companies say that only virgins can use a cup. This is not the case. A person can start using a cup at any age. However, we do recommend that if the person is very young, let's say they're 11 or 12 and they just start menstruating, sometimes it can be harder for the person to insert the cup, the child to insert the cup. So you can start them off on maybe cloth pads or biodegradable pads, and when they're maybe around 15 or 16 years old, you can switch to the cup. If the child is ready for the cup at 11 or 12, you can definitely go for it. You have small cups, and if you know someone who's that young, we can also suggest there's brands which make extremely small cups for young girls. But we've helped quite a few girls at like 15, 16 years of age use the cup, so it's not been an issue. Just remember that it's your body and don't force it to do something it's not comfortable with. You know, the cup is not for everyone. It doesn't work with everyone, and there's a reason that there are also cloth pads and biodegradable pads. So just be mindful of your own body as well.
Anjali, could you add what we're doing?
Oh yes,
the
sorry.
drive. Yes, thank you.
So we are also, before we end the session, we are in this pandemic, there's many women who don't have access to any period supplies, period products right now. And we are going and donating cloth pads and menstrual cups to many of the labor camps in Pune. So we are accepting donations for that. If you would like to donate and contribute, that would be extremely grateful for your help. I will just quickly pull up the information for that. Oh no, 1 second. You can see this hopefully. We would be very grateful for your help if you would like to contribute. We will be doing this on 28th May. Okay, you said any reason why a cup won't work for someone. It's also anatomy. You know, some people have, for example, if you have a UTI, if you've just given birth, if some people have pre-existing conditions, for example, the cup may not work. Also, you should always check with your gynecologist if your cup is not, if you have a pre-existing condition. We will share some good gynecologists who know about the cup and can help talk about it. Not all the gynecologists in India actually know about the menstrual cup and will just say no blatantly if you ask them. So we can share a list with you, but that is usually not the way to, usually it doesn't work. Sometimes it may not work if you have pre-existing conditions. So that is something you can keep in mind. Rustic Art is not taking orders online. You can actually reach out to any of the numbers we had earlier shared. So yes, we will also share that poster in the email. But on the screen, you have my number and Sayuri, she's another of our members' number. You can text us if you would like to buy a cup. So text us with your PIN code and address, and we will just check whether you're in a green zone. If you're in a green zone, we'll forward it to Rustic Art and you can make the payment. We'll send you the payment details and then the cup can be shipped to you. So we're only shipping to green zones right now. We're not allowed to ship to containment zones. But if you'd like to buy one, we can do that way. And Ecofem and Carmesy are supplying, so you should be able to buy pads and biodegradable pads, cloth pads on their website. Again, we will share the website.
All right, thank you everyone for participating, and a big thanks to Anjali, Ahana, Reba, and Mahi for having this wonderful session. I hope everyone found it informative. And for those who are not able to attend, I'll send the recording. Right? Thank you. Thanks everyone. We'll end the session now.